He has spoken on the topics faith, family and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J Loren Norris.
Have you ever noticed how inconvenient it is to do what you're supposed to do? I mean, to do the right thing. I mean, to stand firm on your ideas, your morals, your convictions, to do what you know to be right. Have you ever noticed how inconvenient that is? How hard it is? That's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and I was recently watching a young woman with her daughter. What many would say is the, quote, terrible twos. You know, that season of life where their favorite word seems to be the one that we as parents teach them early on because what we think we're making them safer. We think we're keeping them out of trouble. We think we're preventing them from harming themselves and others. So we teach them this very powerful word, no. Unfortunately, it seems to be the first one they want to repeat back to us. Not mom, not dad, not thank you, not please, but no. That's the one they use. That's the one they use the most. And this little 2-year-old has mastered the word no. Generally speaking, not at times, most 2-year-olds, that are most convenient for mom and dad. In fact, no usually comes at that moment when you absolutely have to have agreement. You've got to have buy-in. You've got to be able to get them to move in the direction you want them to. Stop pulling on the dog's tail. Stop pulling in the dog's ears. Stop sitting on the cat. No, you can't use the spatula and the butcher knife as drumsticks to beat on the television. You can't. And so standing your ground and saying to them no when they're looking at you while you're saying stop doing that and they're yelling to you no, now you have a clash of wills. You have this battle. You have this ongoing tension, which leads into chaos. Because eventually, this battle of wills, well, honestly, somebody's going to win. And if you've been around a 2-year-old recently or at any time in your life, for any period of time, and sometimes it's not just 2, it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, and the more often they win, the more determined they become to win. And sometimes to win at all costs. I mean, a swat on the backside, a nose in the corner, a time out in an unpleasant place or unpleasant position with no toys, with no TV, losing their digital devices. That's not a price too high to pay when you're 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. If you get to win the battle, the argument of who screams loudest and who screams longest and who throws a bigger fit and who's more of an embarrassment in public. And so you just give in sometimes as a parent of a toddler. I know. I raised 4 of my own and now I have 15 that call us Lolly and Poppy. We're around them all the time, toddlers. They have this way of throwing a temper tantrum at just the right time. And if you haven't noticed, their ability to choose when to yell no, when to follow that with a scream or a cry or a flop to the floor, a wet fish kind of attitude on the ground in front of the people around you, it doesn't happen when it's just the 2 of you. Hey, it seems like when it's just the 2 of you, that's a good time for negotiation. It's when you're in public, when everybody's looking. That's when they decide that now is a good time for a temper tantrum, a screaming fit, don't touch me, you're not my parent kind of reaction. And I'm going to be honest and say this is not just about 2-year-olds. This is about teenagers. This is about employees. This is about, believe it or not, societies and cultures. There's a great deal of this defiant, rebellious, I want to have my way in our culture today. I watched a cute little meme on Facebook. I guess it was Friday or Saturday. And this young woman looked like a recent college grad kind of age in a job interview. And the boss said, well, if you got this job, then I would expect you to be here Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. And you could see the panic-stricken look on her face as she explained, I get up about 10. I have my latte and I have to get my special drink. And then she listed the whole drink for him. And, I'm thinking more like 10:30, 11 would be kind of my regular day. And they said, okay, well, thanks for coming in. That's not going to work for us. And she said, wait, are you firing me already? I mean, I feel like I need to talk to somebody in HR because I'm feeling really triggered. I'm under a lot of anxiety right now. You have mental health days, right? I think I need a mental health day. He's like, but you don't even work here. You don't have a job. I'm not going to hire you because it's not a good fit. And she just went off completely. And I'm thinking, that's not unlike the 2-year-old back-talking mom. That's not unlike the rebellious, hard-headed, I will get my way at all costs that we see in our culture today. And sadly, it's not an age bearing anymore. It's a mindset. It's not about being as Dr. Jordan Peterson calls him, the 2-year-old tyrant. It's about having this philosophy that if I make enough noise, if I throw a big enough temper tantrum, if I call on the right people, if I scream with the right vitriol, I will get my way, even if getting my way isn't the best for me. Even if getting what I want right now is dangerous for my own life, for my own health, for the culture around me, for the society at large, or for the world. If I want to push the red button and blow up Venezuela, I should have the right to push the red button. I want to push the red button and nobody can tell me no. It's that kind of silliness that expands beyond the lack of self-control of a 2-year-old, which we kind of expect. And it goes all the way up to political leaders who, they don't care if it makes any sense or not, they just want their way. They want power. Napoleon was one of those. Yeah. Mao was one of those. They had to use brute force because their ideas were unacceptable. They didn't make any sense. They served only one very small group of people and they made no sense for society at large or culture at large. And the world looked at it and recognized that and we went, no. But that doesn't serve everybody. That's really not a good idea. And honestly, it's not a good idea for you even. And yet the battle literally became global war over the tyranny of a 2-year-old kind of mindset. But we're not just seeing it in toddlers and tyrants. We're not just seeing it in the social elites. It's being ingrained in our school system, in our children. I mean, you probably don't see the relationship, but I'm going to poke you in the eye with it just in case. There was a commercial probably 15 years ago. It was for a soft drink. It comes in a green can. And in big giant letters on the screen, it would just say, "Follow your thirst." Who cares if what's in that can could kill you in 5 years? Easily, if you drink one every time you're thirsty, You're going to be diabetic. Your blood sugar regulation is going to be off the charts. Your insulin dependence, unbelievable. Not to mention what that's going to do to your brain because of all the caffeine. Oh, that's right, it's caffeine free. But it's loaded with sugar and all kinds of other not human consumables. But you should obey your thirst. Don't ask if it's good for you. That's not the question. But if your thirst says you want something, this is the something you want. That kind of indoctrination, that kind of brain manipulation, that kind of thought process interruption, that's dangerous. That's deadly. Now, what's really odd, though, is that what we've seen over the last couple of years is that it's not the ones who use this powerful manipulative way of media to speak into your subconscious mind, to pour ideas into you, to believe a certain way, to think a certain way, to do a certain thing, to respond to a voice or a name or an ideology. And those are not the ones that we're concerned about. No, the ones who get mocked, the ones who get ridiculed, are the ones who have made a commitment to stand their ground. They've identified some core values, some principles, some morals, and they're like, yeah, it's going to be like this. See, having raised 4 kids of my own who are all now adults and all of them still alive, believe it or not, because they had some moments that were, I'm kidding. All of them, at some point or another, maybe only once, but looked me in the eye and said, no, I'm not doing that. And the younger they were, the more direct my response was. The older they've gotten, the more I've kind of given them the choice to say, I understand. This is what I'm asking you to do. This is what I'm telling you to do. This is what I'm suggesting, recommending, requiring. Now, your option to not do it absolutely does exist. However, what you should know is that I believe strongly enough that this is the right thing to do. It's what you should do. And it's what I expect of you. That on the other side of your choice to do rest consequences. Now, they may be risk-reward type consequences. If I ask you to mow the yard enough times and you don't do it, then I don't know. Maybe on Monday I go to the cell phone store and your number gets disconnected because I've been paying the bill for 5 years. I'm just saying, if you can't mow my yard, then you better go mow somebody else's because you're not paying for your own cell bill. And that's on you. You have a choice. You can choose to mow the yard or you can choose to pay for your own cell phone. It's totally your choice. And I believe that the conviction to stand my ground, there were times that turned into a lot of raised voices. I had that conversation with my youngest daughter at one point while I was out of state. And when I came home, her room was empty. Vacuumed the floor and everything. The butterfly left the nest long before it went through the cocoon phase, in my opinion. Poof, gone. Why? Because she's as strong-willed as I am. I stood my ground on some things and we didn't come out of it well. But the ability to stand your ground, the ability to choose your high ground, to say these are the things that I will not waver on. These are the things that are decided. I guarantee you, I promise you, as a leader, as a parent, in the society and in culture, in your smallest of relationships, your neighbors, your immediate family, your extended family, your aunts, uncles, and cousins, the people on your block, the people in your Sunday school class, the people in your small group, the people at work, the people in your town, the people on the school board. When you stand your ground, you will be mocked. Yep. You'll be ridiculed. You'll be laughed at. If you have teenagers, at some point they're probably going to yell, "I hate you!" Welcome to the party. It's the same party. Because the rebellious nature doesn't like to be told what to do. And the rebellious nature absolutely despises anyone who won't give with the temper tantrum. Anybody who won't give in to the argument. Who won't back off of their stance. because voices are raised or phone calls are made. Now, there's a really strange dichotomy. There are expectations that are kind of the norm. You know, if you're driving in the United States, you do that on the right-hand side of the road. If you're driving in most European nations, you do that on the other side of the road. And if you go from one nation to the other and you take with you the rules of your own road, there's going to be a problem. When you're in their space, you do things their way. That's the way it works. But there are also those norms and expectations in society that we've kind of adjusted to over time because, well, it's the right thing to do. An example might be I grew up in retail. I grew up serving tables in an IHOP and other places. I grew up knowing that the customer is always right. That concept has been so abused in some places that it's now beginning to see the pendulum swing the opposite direction. In fact, there are places where a customer who's being abused by their server might be disabused of the notion that the customer is always right when the manager comes by and says, "Why are you being rude to my server?" Well, I don't know. I asked for pancakes and I got cat. All I'm asking for is they replace the cat they put on my table with the pancakes that I ordered. That should not be that complicated. And the fact that I'm upset about it and you're defending your employee who has failed to do their job, that's a different level of a problem. Recently, while on our anniversary trip, we sat at our table in a restaurant 35 minutes after we finished our meal. We told the server when we came in, hey, we just want to watch the rest of the football game, but we'll order an appetizer, we'll order a meal, and we'll order drinks, and we'll stay till the game is over. Well, the game was over before we finished our food. And as soon as we finished our food, the manager seated our server with a table of 14 or 15 people. And the table right beside us, we watched. They came in while we were eating. They ordered their appetizers, they ordered their drinks from the bar, they ordered their food, they finished their appetizers, finished their drinks, finished their food, got their check, and left. And we were still waiting on our check. 35 minutes we waited on our check. We watched the store manager have a powwow with all the other employees. We watched the store manager move that powwow from the front of the store into the kitchen and have another powwow. We watched him walk by our table 3 or 4 times, waved at him. He waved back. He didn't come over and say, hey, is everything all right? We sat there 35 minutes to get a check so we could leave. Our ride left us. We had to walk almost a mile to catch up with the team that we were riding with. 35. So I picked up a card and I sent in a little comment form and I got a call from the store manager. And she said, so tell me what happened. And so I told her exactly what I wrote. She said, yeah, I read all that. I'm sorry that happened. Me too. And yes, that was the end of the conversation. Okay, I guess I'm eating a cat, because never going to get pancakes at this place, never going to get the kind of service that we expected, because the same rebellious, defiant, self-serving, self-seeking persona has made it all the way to the general manager level and the store managers and the servers, and they really don't care about the customer anymore. And this really means that the 2-year-old tyrant who screams and throws a fit to get their way is now in charge. Who'd have thunk? That's where we are. And so if you find yourself to be the kind of leader who says, I have these moral values, I have these decisions that I've made, these things that I believe to be right, and the ones that are wrong, and the ones that are good ideas and bad ideas, and there's a reason that I stand my ground on these, and if you don't want to mow the yard, then there are consequences. And now all of a sudden those consequences, they come back to bite the guy who put the consequences in place, not the one who failed to meet the expectations to avoid the consequences. Yeah, it's all upside down and backwards right now, but if you want to be a strong leader, I strongly suggest that you decide what those issues are upon which you will stand your ground. the customer always right, or sometimes the customer wrong? If the customer is always right, even when they're wrong, then you're going to have to figure out what those consequences look like and for whom. Is it for your team? Do you make things right with your customer? Do you apologize to them and offer something in consolation? Or do you just go, yeah, I already heard it all? See, I watched this young mom reach the point where she was like, okay, I'm done with this argument. I'm about to lose my cool, so go play. Walk away. Bow out. Get out of my face while you're safe. To which the 2-year-old said, yes. No. And at that point, it wasn't I'm not going to do what you told me to. It was, I'm going to keep poking you in the eye and see how long I can poke you in the eye before it doesn't hurt anymore, or before you break my finger for poking you in the eye. But I'm just going to keep poking you in the eye until I can't poke you in the eye anymore. What are you going to do about it? At some point, you just want to break their finger, or you just got to move your eye. Make your own space. Do it another way. You got to find, but here's what you can't do. You can't give up what you know to be right. Now, I hope you can see these metaphors, the illustrations of raising a toddler and dealing with customer service and management and hiring an employee who feels like they have rights even though they don't work here. Citizens tend to do the same thing. The people who come here claiming to be, well, they're not even citizens yet. They don't have the rights to the same access and levels of protection that a citizen should have. And yet, they're demanding it. They're getting the money for it. They're getting the power. They're getting the voting authority. It's being handed to them by those who said, you know, I know you've got your opinions and I know you've got your ground, but they're acting more like the GM who has the same opinion as the manager, who has the same opinion as the server, that the customer is not always right. And you, the citizen, you're the customer and you're not always right and you don't get your way. And we will throw a temper tantrum until we get our way, and we will scream and we will yell and we will protest and we will set things on fire and we will stand in the street. We'll glue ourselves to painting or glue ourselves to the floor. We will argue with you until you just give up, even if you're wrong, even if you're right, even if we're wrong, even if it doesn't matter. We just want to get our way. Whether it's right, wrong, or otherwise, we will win the war of attrition because we will not stop arguing until you agree with us. We may change our mind tomorrow. We might admit, okay, it wasn't a good idea. In fact, truth is, we lied about it the whole time. But you gave in. And so we win. And that's the kind of battle we're fighting right now on every level of our society, every level of our culture, from your toddlers to your tyrants, from your employees to your clients. And so I challenge you as a leader to identify those things that you say, you know what, on that, I'm willing to compromise. In fact, on some issues, I'm just willing to surrender. Have it your own way. Hey, look, if you want to jump off of a 10-story building because you're convinced you can fly because you put on flying clothes, if you want to call yourself a bat, then act like a bat. And when you splat, you're a bad bat and it's nothing on me. I'll surrender that point to you. If you want to be a bat, act like a bat. Go for it. By the way, all those consequences, they're solely on you. I got nothing to do with them. But if you try to convince my child they're a bat and that they should jump off of a building, now me and your little bat self, we have a problem because you're not making my children batty. Crazy enough as it is. No, that's where I draw the line. That's where I stand my ground. I'll surrender you being a bat all you want to, but I won't allow you to make my children bats. I'm sure you're following that analogy to some degree. There are places that I will draw the line, that I will stand my ground, and I don't care about the ridicule, and I don't care about the mocking, and I don't care about the canceling or the disowning or the turning of the back on me. But whatever you got to do, you got to do. I know with whom I stand my ground. I know what ground I stand on. I know with whom I am aligned and who's aligned with me. I know whose back I've got and who's got my back. And If it goes any further than that, then we'll go to the mat. But if you want to be a bat, you be a bat. You want to convert my children to be bats? That's when we go to the mat. For what it's worth, when I'm forced to give up what I hold valuable and true, it's not about self-righteousness. It's about being attached to the truth in a way that if I have to die for the truth, I will. If I have to go to the mat and on the mat I lose, I lose. But I won't step away from the mat. I will stand my ground. There are not so many things that I absolutely refuse to reconsider or back off of. But for those things, it's on. And I encourage you as a leader to have the same kind of convictions. Now, you decide what those convictions are. You decide what it is that you're willing to go to the mat for, what you're willing to put your back against the wall for, what you're willing to look behind you and go, who's standing with me back to fight against this silliness? You decide that. That's not for me to decide for you. Now, if you'd like to have a conversation one-on-one and talk about what are those things that I will not back away from, that I will stand and fight for, send me a direct message. We'll schedule a time to chat. I'm glad to do it. And if you're curious, how do I express myself that I have these convictions? How do I tell the world about that without being a dictatorial tyrant myself? Well, that's what StoryPowerCoach.com is for. I will train you to communicate in that way at that level. That's what I'm here for. That's what I do. But I will tell you, if you're not willing to stand your ground, then be willing to give up all of it. Because those who will take the ground you're standing on now, they don't want just the ground you're standing on. They want everything you've got. Maybe you've heard the old adage, give them an inch, they'll take a mile. If you don't determine in yourself where you will stand, you'll have nothing left to stand on. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, or Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Loren is a master teacher on storytelling, and I learned so much. I'm really going to have to sit down and go back through everything, and I think I might have to have some more coffees with Loren, but it was totally worth my time, and I really highly recommend it if you're looking to grow your ministry, grow your business, grow your career. Loren will serve you well.
Thank you.